Boundaries and consent. Hey everyone, we are so excited to be talking to you about boundaries and consent today. Honestly, this is one of our favorite topics because figuring out how to set boundaries that feel good for you can be life-changing. Literally, we experience boundaries or the lack of daily. Before we get into it, let's introduce our team of educators from Planned Parenthood.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Giovanni. I use the pronouns he, him.
And I'm Maria. I use she, her pronouns.
Hey everyone, my name is Joss and I use she, they pronouns.
Okay, so simply put, boundaries help us to establish for ourselves and others what is okay and what is not okay. They can be physical or emotional, loose or rigid, and really whatever you want them to be. Remember, they are yours. In every case, boundaries help relationships stay healthy and mutually supportive by making our expectation and needs clear. Boundaries can be super beneficial. They help us advocate for ourselves, making us more self-compassionate and self-confident. When we are feeling good, there's less anger and resentment towards others because they are aware of our wants and needs. They also make us feel more safe, give us inner peace, and offer us more time and energy for what is truly important. Healthy boundaries are all about you.
So, in order to set healthy boundaries, you need to know some things about yourself. You need to know what you want, you need to know what you need, and you need to know what is important to you, what your values are, so that you can set healthy boundaries accordingly. And another way that we might talk about boundaries is by talking about consent. So think to yourself, what does consent mean? A lot of people define consent by giving permission or an enthusiastic yes. But what does this look like in our everyday lives as we're trying to figure out boundaries? So whether you know it or not, you've seen consent play out in so many different ways. A couple of examples would be if your sibling asks to borrow your phone charger and you say yes, then that would be consent. Whereas if they just took it from your room, then that would not be consent. Or maybe your neighbor asks you to watch her kids for 30 minutes while she runs to the store and you say, yeah, I'll watch your kids. If she's back in 30 minutes, then that's consent. But if it takes her an hour, then that would not be consent. Or if she stops by 3 other places, that would also not be consent. Or maybe your friend asks you for a ride to their boyfriend's house. And you're like, yeah, I'll give you a ride. Then that would be an instance of consent. But then if they don't tell you that their boyfriend lives in California till they're in the car, then that would not be consent. You don't have the information that's relevant. Or if we were to say, hey, can everyone on this video call turn on their camera, please? Maybe a teacher were to say that for a class, or we were to ask that during office hours or something, then that would be an instance where you could practice consent. You could say, no, I actually don't feel comfortable with that. So in order to help illustrate this, we want to show y'all a short video.
If you're still struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, hey, would you like a cup of tea? And they go, oh my God, I would love a cup of tea. Thank you. Then you know they want a cup of tea. If you say, hey, would you like a cup of tea? And they're like, I'm not really sure. Then you could make them a cup of tea or not, but be aware they might not drink it. And if they don't drink it, then, and this is the important part, don't make them drink it. Just because you made it doesn't mean you are entitled to watch them drink it. And if they say no thank you, then don't make them tea at all. Just don't make them tea. Don't make them drink tea. Don't get annoyed at them for not wanting tea. They just don't want tea, okay? They might say, yes, please, that's kind of you. And then when the tea arrives, they actually don't want the tea at all. Sure, that's kind of annoying as you've gone to all the effort of making the tea, but they remain under no obligation to drink the tea. They did want tea, now they don't. Some people change their mind in the time that it takes to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk. And it's okay for people to change their mind. And you are still not entitled to watch them drink it. And if they're unconscious, don't make them tea. Unconscious people don't want tea. And they can't answer the question, do you want tea? Because they're unconscious. Okay, maybe they were conscious when you asked them if they wanted tea. And they said yes. But in the time it took you to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk, they are now unconscious. You should just put the tea down. Make sure the unconscious person is safe. And this is the important part again. Don't make them drink the tea. They said yes then, sure, but unconscious people don't want tea. If someone said yes to tea, started drinking it, and then passed out before they'd finished it, don't keep on pouring it down their throat. Take the tea away. Make sure they're safe, because unconscious people don't want tea. Trust me on this. If someone said yes to tea around your house last Saturday, that doesn't mean they want you to make them tea all the time. They don't want you to come around to their place unexpectedly and make them tea and force them to drink it going, but you wanted tea last week. Or to wake up to find you pouring tea down their throat going, but you wanted tea last night. But if you can understand how completely ludicrous it is to force people to have tea when they don't want tea, and you're able to understand when people don't want tea, then how hard is it to understand it when it comes to sex? Whether it's tea or sex, consent is everything. And on that note, I'm going to go make myself a cup of tea.
So, as silly as that video is, consent is a serious topic. To help you understand, we are going to break it down using the acronym FRIES. Consent stands for freely given. So consent has to be freely given without pressure, force, manipulation, or while under the influence of drugs or alcohol. It can sound like, yes, I'm totally sober right now and I would love to do this. Or I really want this if you do too. Consent is reversible, meaning anyone can change their mind about what they want to do. Remember in the video just because you make someone tea doesn't mean that they have to drink it, right? Just because you've done it before or in the middle of doing it right now doesn't mean you can't change your mind. Someone might tell you, I want to do this, but not right now. I don't feel like doing this anymore. Like I know we've done this before, but I don't want to anymore. Consent is informed. Everyone involved should be honest. For example, if you agree to have sex with a condom and you or your partner take that condom off without anyone's permission, that is not consent. So be clear, talk about your sexual histories, the form of birth controls you may or may not be using, and what hooking up means to you specifically. Consent is enthusiastic. So if someone isn't excited or really into it, then that's not consent. Consent can sound like, yes, don't stop. I want this. I want you. This is great. Keep going. And finally, consent is specific. Saying yes to one thing like going to the bedroom to make out doesn't mean yes to something like oral sex or any kind of sex. Seeing how involved it can be, we want to give you some tools for checking for consent. First, use your words. Ask them if they are sure about this, if they feel good, right? Or if they want to keep going. Ask them, are you okay? Should we slow down? Is this okay with you? Also, use your body language. We say a lot with our bodies. Is your partner making eye contact? Are the vibes feeling positive? Are they meeting you halfway? Are they pulling back from you? All these things you have to keep in mind. If any of these are a red flag, stop immediately and ask what's going on and make sure everything is okay. Now, we have some tips for anyone who experiences rejection. When someone says no or doesn't give permission, keep your cool. Don't force it or push back. Be appreciative and understanding and find a way to bounce back. You might feel bummed or embarrassed, but the most important thing to do in this situation is to be supportive and respectful. Physically, is there a romantic alternative or something that y'all could do instead of having sex? Maybe go for a walk or go play some games or maybe go for a bite. Anything that takes you out of that scenario and respect the person's boundaries. Also, if you're aroused, genital tissues swell up and become erect. Sometimes it can feel a bit uncomfortable when this happens, especially when we don't have an opportunity to climax. But arousal doesn't obligate anyone to help you with that, right? In other words, no one will experience any kind of permanent pain or damage from not being helped with their erection or arousal. A lot of times people call this blue balls, but realistically, people of all gender experience this. You can either wait it out or take care of it yourself once you're in a safe and private place. The most important thing to remember is we have to respect other people's boundaries regardless of how we feel. So be hopeful and positive, but remember, no one owes you time, attention, or sex. Now, for more information on these topics, please feel free to check out our IG, Sarcastic Sex Ed. There's lots of information about that. Also, for any community resources regarding teens or young adults, check out our bit.ly, Q's Connect. You can also reach us at via our email for any questions, for any one-on-one sessions, or any education sessions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thanks, y'all.